And I will officially welcome you all today to the performance appraisal briefing for 2018. My name is Nora Blackgaller, and I work in human resources. I've been at the lab for 8 years, and I do, technically, I'm an organizational development specialist. But one of my primary responsibilities is stewarding the various performance management processes that we have at the laboratory. And the major event that we have every year is the performance appraisal process. And we offer this briefing both for folks who are new to the performance appraisal process to kind of give an overview of what's involved, and to also serve as a refresher for folks who maybe have done this before but just want a reminder. So I'm curious, how many of you are doing a performance appraisal this year for the first time? Okay, so it's mostly new, handful of refreshers, which is great. I want you to, hopefully leave here today feeling comfortable about what happens during the performance appraisal process, a little bit about why we do things the way we do them, and hopefully also have you know where you can go for additional help if you have questions after you leave. So the big news for performance appraisal process this year, for those of you who are new, no big deal, but for those of you who have been through the performance appraisal process before, there are no changes this year. So the process that we went through last year is the same process that we will go through this year. There's no adjustments to what you'll see in the appraisal or what is happening in terms of how we go through the process. I want to remind folks that in the performance appraisal process, every employee is assigned a rating, and we use 5 ratings at the laboratory, ranging from far exceeds expectations to exceeds expectations, achieves expectations, meets most expectations, and then fails to meet expectations. A number of years ago, prior to 2015, the laboratory director did provide a ballpark range of what he expected in terms of each of those ratings, the amount to be per directorate. But in 2015, the lab director did away with that, so the range of ratings is left up to the discretion of the directorate. And the interesting thing is what we see is there is a fair amount of consistency even so across years. But one thing that is a little bit different this year, but not enough, I hope, to scare anybody, is that while we're continuing to use Workday for our performance appraisal process, and while when you get into the form functions exactly as it did last year, Workday upgrades twice a year, and they make some broad changes to their system periodically. And this time, about 2 weeks ago, they upgraded to version 31. And in version 31, they changed the landing page for when you get in, what I always refer to as your home page. And they changed the home page so that it would be more friendly and consistent with the experience that people have when they use Workday on their mobile devices. Just a side note, I don't encourage anyone to do their performance appraisal on a mobile device. The screens do get really tiny. But, other things you can do in Workday on your mobile device very easily. So what they did essentially is they changed all the icons. And you can see all the icons here. These used to be front and center, and they used to be bigger and more colorful, and now they've gone to a monochromatic blue scale because it, I guess, works better mobily. And they've also brought the inbox out to the home page so that you can see the things that are sitting, the first few items that are sitting in your inbox from your home page. I guess it's 3 or 4. And you can click anywhere in here to go to your inbox. The other thing they did is they moved the home icon from front and center on the home page over to the far left. And they also added a new icon about notifications. And notifications in Workday are messages that usually you're also receiving in your email. So if you got an email last week about performance appraisals, that's technically a notification, and you'd see it here in Workday as well. So not just a few cosmetic changes, doesn't really change the functionality, but I don't want those of you who've been in Workday before to go in and go, whoa, something changed. It did change, but it's not a big deal. Okay? So let's jump right to the performance appraisal process. So we start the performance appraisal process each year shortly after Labor Day, usually the week after. And then I think of the performance appraisal as roughly going through 3 phases. So there's the first phase of the process where we as employees have the opportunity to provide a statement of accomplishments and write about the work that we did over the last year and provide that into the appraisal process. And that usually lasts through the month of September. Then roughly the month of October is the time that we give to supervisors to complete an evaluation of each employee's performance. The specific dates associated with that sometimes vary from division to division, but it's roughly October. And then in November, we see conversations about looking at the distribution of ratings and discussion of are we rating consistently across the division. And we hope to see all of the conversations and final approvals of all the appraisals completed before Thanksgiving broadly. And then we anticipate that there would be conversations about performance appraisals in December. So it's not actually that many steps, but we need to give people time to do each of the steps. So we have these major phases that we go through in terms of self-evaluation, manager evaluation, review and approval of the appraisals, and then the conversations about the appraisals. And I know some appraisals do drip into January. The conversations don't wrap up until after the first of the year, but I try to think of it as ending in December because it makes me feel more cheerful. So let me tell you about the steps that we go through. So last week we launched the performance appraisal process, and when we launched the process, 2 things happen. One is that every employee who is included in the performance appraisal process gets their self-evaluation in their Workday inbox. And you can write as much, I'll talk a little more about that, but you can write as much or as little as you'd like about your performance. And you can either attach a separate document to your appraisal, or you can paste it into the appraisal itself. I prefer to see you paste it in. I'll talk to you a little bit about why when we get a little deeper in. But you can do either or both. They're all available to you. The other thing that happens when we launch the performance appraisal process is we remind every manager via an action in Workday that they can ask other people for feedback on their employees' performance. So each manager gets a feedback reminder action in their Workday inbox for each of their employees. And both of those things are active now, and both of those things will be via the system pushed forward so that on October 1st, Monday, all managers have evaluations in their inbox for each of their employees. So that's the idea. Employees have September to complete their evaluations. If I didn't complete my evaluation, the action will get pushed forward so that my manager has the performance appraisal in their inbox. So, every year we have a minority, but a small percentage of folks who don't complete that step, and it gets pushed forward the last weekend of September. Then the manager has the employee appraisal in their inbox, and the manager is expected to put in some evaluation of performance by writing, a paragraph, by writing a page, whatever it happens to be. The manager also is asked to give each employee a safety rating, and the manager is asked to, and I'll tell you that most people get an achieves on safety, because if we all do something, go through the year, nothing bad happens, we're achieving safety. If you're involved in an incident and something not safe happens, it's possible that you could fail to meet for safety. And we would expect that your manager would put some commentary in about that, not just go, fails to meet, no reason. And then also every year we have a handful of people who do something exceptional that makes us safer or prevents an accident from occurring. So it's possible for someone to get an exceeds in safety. We only use 3 ratings for safety. The manager is also expected to give each employee, and has to give each employee, a rating. So every employee is assigned one of the 5 ratings that I mentioned at the beginning: fails to meet, meets most, achieves, exceeds, or far exceeds expectations. After so the manager does those 3 things, writes an evaluation, safety rating, performance rating. submits the review. The review then goes to the manager's manager for approval. So the expectation is that every manager of managers will review what their employees have written about their employees and say, yes, that's good to go, or no, it's not. Okay. And the manager's manager has the option to send it back to the manager to make adjustments to the appraisal. Okay. Then there's this next tier of, it's technically an approval, but it's not really an approval, and that we have a mechanism in place so that we can hold all the reviews for generally a division until they've all been reviewed and are good to go. And then all of the reviews for each division are released at the same time. And that's what the second approval is for. So the person who does that release doesn't really read the appraisals, but they hold them so that if there are any last minute changes, they actually can send it back if it needs to be sent back. And they can then let them all be moved to the next step at the same time, which is what they do. They do a mass approval. At that point, each of the managers gets all of the appraisals for their employees back in their Workday inbox, and they have an action button that they can determine what day they release each appraisal to each employee. And the guidance that we give people is that the best practice is to let people read their appraisals before you have a conversation with them, so that we come to the table equally prepared to discuss the appraisal. And that, so we release it a day or two before, and then there's a conversation about that appraisal. And it's an opportunity for both the manager and the employee to talk through any issues or concerns or great news that they want to share. So, okay. After that conversation takes place, we ask that the managers acknowledge that a conversation took place. So the manager goes in, and for each acknowledgement, there's a status box. And we ask managers typically, there's 3 options in the status box. The manager only uses 2 of them, because the manager goes in and either acknowledges with no comment or acknowledges with comment. So if the manager's just going to go in and acknowledge no comment, they put no comment, they click submit, they're done. The manager puts acknowledge with comment. We expect that they then would be putting some comments in the comment box saying, oh, I spoke with the employee on this date, we agreed to this and this. Sometimes there's, based on our conversation, I'm also encouraging this, or whatever they might say. And they submit that. Then the final step in the process is the employee acknowledgement. So after the manager says we had a conversation, done, the employee gets it in their inbox, and the employee also has the opportunity to acknowledge. Now, the acknowledgement is not saying, I agree with this appraisal. The acknowledgement is just saying, I read the appraisal, and we discussed the appraisal. As an employee, you can acknowledge no comment. And that's what most people do. You can acknowledge with comment. So you might put in, a conversation about, a comment about the conversation you had, or your thoughts on the appraisal and the year moving forward. You can also acknowledge with rebuttal. And that gives you the opportunity to say, I have some disagreement with the contents of this appraisal, and I would like to provide my view. So you are able to acknowledge with rebuttal, and then in the comment box, you can put your side of the story that you want to have included in the formal document of your appraisal. So you always have that option. Okay. So those are the 3 options for employees. Once the employee submits the acknowledgement, that process is completely done. And, we're off to we wait till the next year to come.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
What is the reason for Argonne to even do the whole process for us and kind of evaluate us? Are we going to have a better raise in the future? Are we going to have a better position in the future? What is the main goal for Argonne to do this for all the employees here?
So there's the technical reason why we do that, and then there's the philosophical reason why we do this. So technically, we do have an obligation per our contract with the Department of Energy to, if we're going to give people raises, we have to have some evaluation of performance. Okay. In reality, the size of our raises is not as linked to our performance ratings as it is to a number of other things that are evaluated in the merit process, but that's our contractual obligation. But philosophically, the reason we do performance appraisals is to really encourage the idea of conversation between manager and employee, and that we're looking at the work that's being done by each position, and we're saying this position, this person is, should be doing X, Y, and Z, and that we come back at the end of the year and say this person did X, Y, Z well, or this person did X, Y, Z well, and has these opportunities to maybe do X, Y, Z better, or did X, Y, Z so incredibly well that I want to just put a stake in the ground and say that this went really well. So it's an opportunity to both reflect back on what happened over the last year, and then to set some expectations over what we anticipate happening in the future. And if folks have these conversations annually and hopefully a little more frequently and check in, which is why we're encouraging gold check-ins throughout the year as well, then we see people, managers and employees working in more alignment. We see managers being more aware of the effort that the employee is putting out, and we see employees better understanding, in many cases, why they're being asked to do certain things. So we see it as a good path forward, and that is why we're trying to bring more and more people into the appraisal process so that we're seeing more and more conversation between managers and employees, and not just people doing work and managers maybe not being as aware of what's going on as they could be. Okay. Yeah.
Is it true that during the year, managers or those that influence managers will have the ability to add, augment, change those goals?
So it is true that throughout the year, so their goals, it is possible to add, edit, delete goals as part of the appraisal process. Once the process is completely completed, so once that acknowledgement is ended, then all of those goals can also be edited by managers or employees any day of the year. If an employee edits their goals, then a manager, that change has to be approved by a manager, their manager. If a manager edits an employee's goals, the employee will receive a notification, and you'll get an email in your inbox that your goals have been modified. So they can be changed any day of the year by either party, and the other party knows about it. There can be no secret changing of goals. Okay. So these are the specific dates for this year. So we launched the appraisal process on last Monday, September 10th. And the employee evaluations will be available for you to complete if you have not already done so, but about 250 people have. They will be available until Friday, September 28th, end of day. And at that point, it's a little bit, so literally that weekend we push those things forward. So you could slip it in a little bit later, but I'm going to tell you to be safe, 5 p.m. is what we're considering the deadline. The same is true for the manager feedback actions that are in the manager's inboxes. If managers submit those before Friday, September 28th, they can submit them before then, but over that weekend they are going to go away. And on Monday, October 1st, every manager will have their employees' evaluation available to them for them to complete. And we expect that those will be completed per whatever guidance a division gives the managers. So most divisions will set a particular date that they expect all the manager appraisals to be completed and submitted, but I can't tell you what that date is. So if you're a manager, you're going to have to talk to your division. We do expect that the managers will submit, the managers will approve, and that the division will do its level setting and be done by Friday, November 16th. So that everything would be fully approved, and then by Thanksgiving week, every manager would have their employees' appraisals back in their inbox ready to be released to the employee. So I generally don't recommend that people have performance conversations during Thanksgiving week. Good or bad, it just doesn't seem like a good Thanksgiving week activity to me. But, so I think it's very likely you could expect that you would start seeing your appraisals back for you to review the week after Thanksgiving. And certainly before break, you should see your appraisal and have a conversation with your supervisor about that appraisal. After the conversation, the manager will acknowledge. Once the manager acknowledges, you will be able to acknowledge, and then the process is done.
In regards to bargaining units that have just entered this process.
Yes.
I understand this year, a portion of this is done for us, that we will not have any input on a portion of it this year, but we will next year.
Can I ask what
So-
bargaining unit you're in?
IMAW.
Okay, that's the technicians? Yeah. So,
Is that the self-evaluation portion?
so that's correct. So starting last year and continuing this year, we have started bringing the bargaining units into the performance appraisal process. Last year, we brought in the SEIU workers and the designers and drafters. And for SEIU last year, the only thing we did in the performance appraisal process, because we can't evaluate you on things in the past, that would be unfair. But what we're having happen this year is goals are being set for, or what happened last year is goals were set for all the SEIU workers. And this year, the SEIU workers are able to do a self-evaluation, and the managers will do an evaluation. The SEIU workers were not rated last year. Everyone received a rating of expectations only. This year, we're doing the same thing for the technicians. You are not doing a self-evaluation because we're not actually appraising your performance for 2018, but we're setting expectations for 2019. So you don't do a self-evaluation, you should get goals, and you will get a rating of expectations only, saying that we're setting expectations for 19. It's not a real performance appraisal this year. So thank you for asking that question.
Just want to make that
Yeah.
clear for everyone.
No, please, they're great. So, is there another question?
So this is just basically setting the base foundation to creating, going on more with the evaluation process?
So for the technicians, yes, this is the starting year. And for SEIU, that's what we did last year. And so this year, everyone in SEIU can do a self-evaluation and put in a statement of accomplishments, what they think they did. And the managers will do an evaluation and will give a rating this year. So let me show you what this looks like. And if you need to move up, I know it's very tiny, but I'll try to talk through what you're seeing and point just some of the highlights, the landmarks of what you're going to see. So you're going to complete your self-evaluation in Workday. Every employee has that option. It gives you the opportunity to say, talk about the work that you did this year. So you'll go into Workday and you'll click on your inbox. And in your inbox, you'll see something that says performance appraisal, complete self-evaluation, and your name. So this is mine, so I see my name. And then when you click on that, information about the process opens up in the right-hand pane. And you'll see some verbiage about what you can see in the appraisal and what has to happen. And you'll have a link to the job aids that can walk you through this process step by step. Okay. And basically, I'll show you at the end, but all the documentation for performance appraisals is in the Workday job aids folders, because I'm trying to make everything as one-stop shopping as I can. I don't want you to have to go to 3 different places to see what you need to see. So when you go into Workday processes almost always give you options to say, do you want to go through this step by step, or do you want to go through it in one big fell swoop? So basically, it is the difference between show me section 1, show me section 2, show me section 3, or show me all 4 sections on one big long page that I can just page down. It works, it's exactly the same thing, it's just your personal preference. Honestly, when I'm working in Workday, my preference is the summary editor. But to make screenshots to show you for this, I did it guided editor because then it gives me nice clean chunks to grab screens. But it's no different. It's just, do you want it page by page, or do you want it one big, long page?
Can you indicate what icon to get the job description?
Yes. Oop. too far. So if you either just click in this box, or if you click go to inbox, or you click this little inbox up here, it will take you to this page, your inbox. Okay? And then if you click Guided Editor, it will walk you through the self-evaluation. Now, the first thing you'll see on the self-evaluation is where you put in, you're asked to answer, you're actually asked to answer 2 questions. So the first is a question that you answer based on the employee prompt. Your supervisor is going to answer the same box, but we give this manager slightly different guidance. So your guidance says, provide input on your accomplishments over the past year, unless you're given different instructions by your management. The input you provide regarding your accomplishments should be concise. A page or 2 of text should provide sufficient summary to remind your supervisor of the contributions you've made over the last year. And we say that in part because, although it doesn't happen that often, every year we have someone who writes 10 and sometimes up to 20 pages of input about their performance. And if you are inclined to be that thorough in documenting your achievements, I would just remind you that your supervisor may not really want to read that much information. And if there's something important that you did on page 16, they may not actually get to it. I'm not a comment on your management. I'm just thinking about, if I've got 4 employees and I've got like a 20-page document to read, I may not read it that thorough. So I encourage you to be concise.
Maybe look at it like a resume.
Yeah, that's a great. Should you look at it like a resume? Yeah, so it's your resume for the year. What did you do this year that's worthy of highlight? If somebody you sent out a 20-page resume, nobody's going to read that. Like, ugh. If this is how you send your resume, what are you going to send me when you're working for me? Oh my gosh. Be relatively brief. But and the other thing I would say to you is I encourage you. I love Workday. I really do. I was really involved in bringing this into the organization. But sitting and typing in Workday is a drag. So write your self-evaluation not in Workday. Create it in a Word document or whatever your favorite editor is. Just write it up online somewhere else. And then you can attach it. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. And I encourage you to then just grab that content and paste it into Workday. It's much easier. But I'll tell you, you could paste in, you'll come in here and you'll answer this question. You'll click here, and you'll see on the next screen, this opens up to a text entry box. Like this. So when you click in the by answer, if you click anywhere in here, it opens up. And then you can paste in whatever you want to paste in. It does give you some text editing capabilities to format it, how you might like to format it. It's not as robust as Word, but it's pretty good. So you can make it look respectable. Or you can just paste it in and it's fine. If you want to see a bigger view of this, you can click on this double arrow and it opens up to be a full page editor. So you can see, if you put in 6 paragraphs, you might see them all. And then when you're done, you can click this check mark and say, okay, I'm done. That finished this question. And then it'll look like this. You'll see the question, you'll see your answer, and if your answer is longer, it'll continue down. And then if you want to edit it again, you can click the little pencil. Okay. You can actually just click in the box. It's pretty friendly that way. The next question you see was added last year, so some of you may have seen this before. And it really is intended, it's not technically, for me, a performance appraisal question, but it is a question that we want to ensure that we're asking our scientific research staff. And they decided that performance appraisal was the one place we knew we could catch everybody. So there's a question in here about Panda. So the question says, and the question's way up at the top in orange, do you author unclassified journal articles, conference papers, or make presentations, display posters at conferences? And if you don't do that, you just come down to this answer box and you type no and you're done. Okay? If you do that, there's a whole bunch of instructions that talk about how you go out to Panda and look up your records and make sure they're up to date. So there's a reasonable amount of documentation here. If you have questions about Panda, as much as I would love to help you, please don't call me because I don't know Panda. I'm just the vehicle for this information. So if you go to the Panda page, I believe the contact for Panda questions is Yvette Wohl in the library. And Yvette is really nice and also really terrific at answering questions and will give you much better answers to Panda questions than I will, or at least more useful answers. I can be very creative, so I could come up with really great answers. Question?
If you traditionally do, but just didn't happen to this year, should you click no or yes?
So I think what you should do is you should, you could put a longer answer in, and as long as your manager concurs with that, you're fine. You could say not this year. Or, yeah. So the idea is just ensuring that people are looking at that because we do, just so everyone knows, we have a responsibility to the Department of Energy that we are logging our work and appropriately in one of their systems so that DOE can show all the work that was done that supported scientific inquiry. And the way we get that information to DOE is through Panda. So if people aren't putting their stuff in Panda, we're not logging information appropriately with Department of Energy. So, but most of us probably here don't do that, so just put no and you're good to go. Then the next section is the goals section. And some of you are going to have goals in from last year. And you and your manager may decide that those goals are still good for this year. And you may not make a lot of changes. Because the idea that we set with goals is that the reason we like goals in Workday and brought them back after a number of years where we were not using goals at Argonne is that goals that span a fiscal year aren't always fit for purpose for a lot of the work that we do here. Because some of us do things and the goal is to do that on a, for the next 3 years or 5 years. And having a goal that says, did you get this done in fiscal year 18 is kind of insulting. But Workday lets us create a goal without a deadline and to say, you can have this goal in the appraisal this year and we can bring it back next year. And we can keep using it and just putting comments in about it saying, yeah, here's progress towards this goal. So you may have new goals. You may have one new goal. You may have 3 older goals. You may have completed 2 goals. You may add 2 more. Whatever makes sense for you and your work that you and your supervisor agree on is what you're going to do with your goals. So goals that were in progress are automatically brought into your appraisal. Goals that were completed this year, this fiscal year, will automatically be brought into your appraisal. But if you had some other goal out there that maybe didn't get brought in for whatever reason, you can go and you can pull it in. It's still available and you can make it part of your appraisal. So in every goal, there's a goal statement. And it is not technically required, but I highly encourage you to put a goal status. And goal status is either in progress, completed, or change in priority, a way of saying we're not doing this goal anymore, canceled. I forget, I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact phrase. But that tells you, it helps us categorize goals so we know stuff that you're still working on, stuff you're not working on. And then when you complete a goal, it's good to put in a completion date. If there's without a completion date, we might not bring it into an appraisal if it was appropriate to bring it in. So, you can also add new goals. So here, I'm sorry, you'll see an add button. I'm bouncing, bear with me. Like this, but it's not on my screen here. So you might have a goal, you might add a goal. When you click add, you'll get a form that looks like this. And if there's a goal that was out there that didn't get brought in automatically, you can click this use existing goal box, and then it'll open up a little menu and show you all your other goals. So you could pick another goal and bring it into your appraisal. Or if you want to add a completely new goal, you can certainly do that too. You put in a goal, you put in a status. Optionally, you put in a description, you put in milestones, but you can just, most people are just putting in goal statements. And then you click this check mark when you're done. And then that goal gets created. You want to add another goal, you click the add button again, either pull from the list or add something completely new. It's pretty straightforward. I know it does, once you've done it once or twice. Okay. The next section of your appraisal allows you to attach supporting documents. So for those of you who are doing Panda, if you have a Panda report to attach, you'll click Add, and you'll add your Panda report. If you did a really pretty job of formatting your self-evaluation in Word, and you want to attach the pretty document as well as the less pretty in Workday look, you can attach your appraisal document. I do encourage you to paste your appraisal in, though, because sometimes people, for whatever purposes, 3 years from now, somebody might be pulling your appraisal, and they might just print it and need to do something with it. And if you didn't paste in your self-evaluation, they might not be able to read that. And your side of the story is certainly something you want to have represented if anyone is looking at your appraisal. So that was a flaw in our old system, and it's a flaw in this system too. So.
Who has the right or ability to see my appraisal outside of myself and my manager?
Your management chain can read your appraisal. And if you were to apply for another job, managers who are looking at your hiring you are able to request your appraisals. We handle that very tightly. So typically, someone makes an appointment, and we show them your appraisals, and we let them read them, and we take them back. We don't give them to anyone else. We let people read them. So it's rare. I mean, doesn't happen very often. But if you were applying for another job, you'd want someone to read what you wrote about your appraisal. You wouldn't want them to miss that.
So if you attach it, they can't print that part.
Well, so I'll tell you. So if I'm preparing something for someone, I know that. So I will look and make sure if there's an attachment that it gets printed. But I can't guarantee that everybody who looks at your appraisal in your management chain will do that. So I just think it puts you in your best position to ensure that your input is being considered in any situation. People don't look at appraisals all the time, but when they do, I want them to see your comments.
When you
Yeah.
copy, will you click on and copy and paste? This is an add or what?
Oh, so add is where you attach. You copy and paste back here when you're in this provide input on your accomplishments. So if you wrote a nice document, grab all that content and paste it in this box. Yeah. So, and although I'm encouraging you just to put a page or two, just so you know, I have pasted 100 pages of text in this box, and Workday will accommodate. It's like super accommodating in that way. So goals. Supporting documents, so you would add, just to attach the document here. You'd paste earlier. Yes. And then when you click attach, it opens up a little browser just like anywhere else you attach documents or pull in documents. You navigate your file structure on your computer, you pick the file, and once you've attached it, it looks like this. And you can click on it here. It is a hyperlink, so if someone's in the system looking, they can very easily click on it. But if someone has printed it, they can't very easily click on it if they didn't also print it. So, then the last piece, you'll see this, but you can't do anything, is the safety evaluation. So the safety evaluation section, I can't completely explain why, but it does show up. You won't do anything here. Your manager will put in a rating here, most likely, and achieves. And then when you click next, then you're at the end. And this then is the summary page. And you know you're on the summary page because now we have, what? Now we have a submit button. Okay? So when you're completely done, ready to roll, you click the submit button, and you've completed your self-evaluation. If you've done this and you want to sleep on it overnight, you can click Save for Later, and it'll all be saved, and you can come back tomorrow, pick up where you left off. And I think that's the last screen. Oh, that's the last screen in the PA process. There are additional resources available for you if you're looking for more step-by-step guidance on how to do performance appraisals. So from the Workday homepage, if you click on Workday Help, this will take you to there's a link to job aids, and then it ultimately is going to take you to Box. You can also get to these Box files from inside Argonne. If you go to the Workday page in Inside Argonne, scrolling a little bit down the page, you'll see a Workday section open up. There's a folder, How To for Performance. In there, there's two folders. One is called Appraisals. The other is called Goals. And if you go to the Appraisals folder, you'll see all of these files. And there's a specific job aid for each step in the PA process. So there's a job aid for Complete My Self-Evaluation. There's a job aid for Get Feedback, for Complete Manager Evaluation, and so on through. There's a job aid for viewing your appraisal. So when you get that notification that your appraisal is ready, you can, if you can't find it, this is how you'll be able to get to it. There's a job aid for the acknowledgement, provide employee review comments. There's a couple memos about why we do Panda and why changes we made last year that I left for historical purposes. If you want to review these slides again, there's a PA Briefing 2018 PDF where I've PDF'd the slides, so you can get to those. And there's also a performance appraisal guide, and this is a document. I think it's 12 pages. But it talks a little bit about a little more about why we do appraisals. It talks about things to think about when you write your self-evaluation. It has guidance for managers things to think about when you're evaluating an employee's performance. It has specific definitions for each of the performance ratings. It differentiates the safety rating from the performance rating. And it basically has more of the written, documented details about how we do performance appraisals and what we think should be happening during performance appraisals. So if you want to read that, I think it's a useful resource. And then there's just a quick summary with dates for this year. But all those things are available to you. They're pretty easy to get to. Because if you're in Workday, you've always got this Workday Help icon. And if you can get to Inside Argonne, you can always get to the Workday page. There's that link right on the first page that has Workday on the lower right quadrant lists. There's a list of apps, and Workday's one of them. So, okay, I'm going to pause here. Thank you for listening, and I hope this answered your questions.